Welcome to the Triple Takeover Toycast, a fortnightly podcast about Transformers and other related toy lines from the 80s and today, the 90s. Joining me as usual are a pair of European exclusives. First up is a man whose dream outfit is a pair of light-piped pink shades and a white shell suit with lightning bolts. It's toy photographer and writer Liam from Toybox Soapbox.
Oh man, I would love that outfit so much.
I know.
Little trainers like missiles.
Alongside him is a man who's neither flashy nor bossy. But if you clash, then he'll steal your thunder. It's toy photographer, writer, and YouTuber Sixo.
Hello, that sounds about right.
And I'm M.A.S.K from TFsquareone, living with the threat of crumbling parts. If your blink reflex has ever saved your eyesight, the strength of which you've regularly employed to locate missiles that can achieve escape velocity, then you're probably familiar with the jewel in the late Generation 1 crown, Turbomasters. Lads, how are things?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And can I say, full confession that there was some debate about who was going to do the intro to this episode tonight, and I was happy that it wasn't me, and even happier now that I've heard it, because that was fantastic.
That was awesome. I was like, wow.
You make it sound like there was a debate as to who wanted to do it, where it was quite literally the opposite. No, you do it. No, I don't want it.
It was mainly me saying, I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Your ability to do these in such a short amount of time is unmatched.
It was very good. I enjoyed it wholeheartedly. What can I say?
And I want a shell suit.
I had a shell suit once for about 2 hours.
What did you do to it?
I think my parents just took it back. I think I convinced one parent to get it for me because other kids in school had the same shell suit. They'd all bought it. And I was like, I want that one too. My mum was like, that doesn't look good. I'm taking it back.
So it was your dad that bought it?
I think it was.
I had one as well, and I also had it for about 2 hours. But for me, you remember those England shell suits in about like 1991 that everybody had?
Right.
And I went out in it for the first time and got it covered in paint by climbing through an abandoned house, like literally half an hour later. So it then had to go straight in the bin when I got home. So I wore it for half an hour.
Was it Christmas time, and were you planning an assault on two robbers by any chance? In the city of New York. Just guessing that was the full story. I don't know. But...
Home Alone Nottingham. That's the
right,
fifth
exactly.
sequel they don't talk about.
I mean, given that is probably the story of your life, I'm assuming that was the state of it. So
just say chomping Skittles.
Indeed. I think I did have a shell suit once as well at some point in the early 90s, but I don't have any recollection of it. But there is a picture of me with our cat at the time, and I think I'm wearing it. So yeah, it was kind of dark blue, I think.
Oh yeah, yours would be like on the closest thing to classy it would be, wouldn't it? Whereas mine was white and purple, probably had triangles and stuff on it. You know?
Triangles, nice.
They were like the best ones, though. They're cool again now.
Yeah, get another one now, man. Relive the dream.
My curiosity won't let this lie. Liam, what was your shell suit like?
Well, the England one. Do you not remember sort of 1991? Everyone had those England tracksuits and shell suits for a bit. The blue and white with little red bits and stuff on it.
All right, so you look like a British Airways plane then, basically.
Yeah. No, I look like I was, just got back from the World Cup.
I'm imagining you in like a full Union Jack outfit now, like Jerry Halliwell or something. That's all I can picture. I got no knowledge of what those England shell suits look like at all. So to me, that's it.
They were like all the rage, like for a bit. But yeah, I literally went out in it, straight out to play, and came back and got shouted at a lot because it had to go straight in the bin because it was covered in paint.
Finding it hard to get past the Jerry Halliwell thing. Liam is gingerbread spice.
Sounds about right. Liam, you were already wearing a Christmas jumper, mate.
And Christmas glasses. I've screen capped it, folks. It will be shared.
It's absolutely believable. It's the 29th of November as we're recording this.
It's because it's the most wonderful time of the year,
Not yet.
Yes, it is. It's already started.
If you had your way, though, we'd be celebrating Christmas in October.
Wish it could be Christmas every day, don't I?
No. I reckon the World Cup has it right. Every 4 years. Christmas should be every 4 years. That'd be great.
But what else would Santa be doing? He'd be just bored.
And this episode is sponsored by TFSauce. They are tfsauce.com. They got your third-party and official Transformers needs covered. And also, please check us out on Patreon. Support the show to keep it going. If you enjoy it, you must be enjoying it because you're here. So that's patreon.com/Triple Takeover.
We also have a Redbubble that's worth mentioning. Redbubble store, you can buy loads of merch just in time for Christmas, maybe. It's redbubble.com/people/triple takeover/explore. So check that out.
Explore.
That's the one. Yes, indeed.
Right, so tonight's episode is going to be very focused. We often thought that subjects like this, where it's a very, very small and limited toy line, would be suited for one of our exclusive minisodes. But as the minisodes started to drag on longer and longer, when we were talking about 3 or 4 toys, we figured that we could make Turbomasters a whole feature-length episode. And we all love Turbomasters, and there's a lot to say, starting with the fact that they are actually Generation 1.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to start on, actually. I was having this discussion with someone recently about the old G1.5 and all of that. I think I have said on the pod previously that's not a term that I personally subscribe to. I get why people do use it, but it's not one that I favour.
It's not Sixo approved.
No, indeed, and therefore it can get in the bin, can't it? It's
not canon.
Get rid of it. Yeah, sod it off. Do you know what I mean?
Why do people make that mistake? Why do they make the mistake that it's G1.5? Where does that term even come from?
Well, I don't know that it's... I think mistake is probably a little bit harsh. I do get why people call it that, but it's essentially the blurring of the lines between G1 and G2, and it's because predominantly in America, G1 ends after 1990. So you get Micromasters and all of that, and Action Masters is the final year. So a lot of people erroneously claim that Action Masters killed off the franchise and all of this. But actually, it's only in America that the franchise ends. In Japan, in Europe, everywhere, it carries on. So, didn't really kill the franchise, I think it's fair to say. So there's no break in Europe at all. There are toys all the way through to the present day. There has never been a year with no Transformers toys. And so you then get 1991 with Turbomasters and everything else. You get 92 and 93. And I think the 1.5, where that comes from, is that 93 started up Generation 2 in America, but in 93, we were still getting Generation 1 in Europe and the UK. So 93 is a weird year because it's both Generation 1 and technically
That's where you
Generation
get those
2.
accelerators, isn't it? Where it's Generation 2 packaging in the US, but it's still Generation 1.
Exactly.
classes.
And you also get some toys which were released in 92 or 93 or whatever in Europe, it would be like the 1 year, and then re-released the next year with Generation 2 written on them.
Of course, like G2 Optimus.
And things like Clench and stuff like that. There was one the other day I was talking about, what was it? Oh, it was the Stormtroopers. Even then, the Stormtroopers, they were European exclusives, but they were released first year as essentially Generation 1. It didn't say Generation 1, of course, because nothing did. But it did have the G2 symbols. So the G2 symbols came in 93, I think, across the board. But then in the following year, 94, they got re-released with the words Generation 2 on the packaging, but exactly the same toys.
As far as I can tell, Turbomasters were actually 1992 release.
Maybe you're right, actually. To be honest, I'd need to double check. I've not looked any of this up, but I'm just doing it from memory.
It's also a mistake to call them European exclusives because they were also available in Japan. And we're going to talk about how they came out in Japan because it's a bit varied. And I believe they were also available in mainland Europe. They were available in Italy, France, and I believe also in Canada. I think there are bilingual Canadian versions of Turbomasters as well. That's something I want to check because I know they do come in English kind of, especially Thunderclash, because that box was used throughout the world. It didn't have like an exclusive Japanese version box. It was just that same.
Yeah, I was going to say the Thunderclash is the real odd one out, and Rotorstorm in a way, because the 4 cars, they were repackaged and everything for Japan, of course, and as versus sets. But yeah, no, fantastic toys as well. Just really nice. I think they are the kind of poster boys of the whole kind of Euro exclusive scene, though, as much as they're not specific just to Europe. They kind of take the front of stage, if you like, don't they, when people think of that era. And I think a lot of that is the style, the light piping, and just the fact that they're great toys. They're really nice, memorable toys.
They've got it all covered, actually. Looks, colours, playability, displayability, names.
Yeah, the names are great.
Gimmicks, too.
Yeah. I think, as well, maybe it's the fact that they're cars. You've got a truck, which is classic. Everyone loves a truck. I mean, so much so that it became Optimus Prime in Machine Wars, of course. You've then got 4 cars, and you've got a helicopter. And who doesn't love all of that, you know? And I think there was, I don't know, even to me as a kid, I had these toys as a kid. Never had Thunderclash as a kid. I don't think, anyway. I was thinking about this recently, but I'm sure I saw Thunderclash as a kid. I'm sure I didn't have it, I don't think, but I knew someone that did. But I had several of the cars. I definitely had Rotorstorm. as a kid. And but yeah, even as a kid, I remember thinking, gosh, this is like the original Cars again. You know, it's like they've kind of almost sort of not rebooted, but, you know, kind of brought it all back to where it started. Square one, if you will.
I love the Turbomasters, man. I had them all except for Thunderclash and Boss. And I remember getting them, and like you were just saying there, it felt very much like they had gone back to, you know, what you knew, the cars and the spring-loaded gimmicks and things like that. And so much so, I repurposed some of them as the original characters. So Flash just became Sideswipe, but in a new body. And that went on to become one of my favourite ever Transformers toys.
I could see that.
You had them as a kid as well?
Yeah. Other than Thunderclash, which I saw loads in the shop, but no one would ever buy it for me. And Boss. Boss is the only one I've never owned.
See, in 1992, I was very much into video games at that point. I remember owning a Game Gear in 1992 and very much having my sight. No, and I got a Mega Drive the same year. So by that point, being 12, I was done with Transformers toys. But I reckon if I had been in your year, I think you guys would have been 10 that year, probably 10 or 11. I think probably last year of primary school, I would probably have had Transformers toys because I had classics, gold box classics from 1991 and 1990. And I reckon I would have got Turbomasters if I had just been a little bit younger. But I was just into the age where all that generation of video games were coming out and I was no longer looking at toys.
I would have thought 92 you'd have been off to college or whatever, mate. But I've obviously got it slightly wrong. I don't know.
First job, wasn't it?
Oh, age jokes, really?
Yeah, we went there. I went there.
I remember then, because I'd already had a Nintendo for a few years, but I remember the Turbomasters coming out and then reinvigorating my love for Transformers, because I'd had quite a few of the Action Masters, but been drifting off by that point a little bit, and then it was those coming back where it really felt like it just gone back to normal Transformers again. And so they pulled me in, but yeah, so you had a Game Gear that year. I mean, how many times did you play it? Because the batteries must have just run out.
It was just permanently connected to a wall. Yeah, it was just connected to a wall while I tried to get through another level of columns or something like that.
I always remember my cousin had one, and I always remember he had a Mega Drive and all that, and we had all this Super Nintendo, and we were sat there once, and I just remember us looking at each other and going, why are we sat playing on a Game Gear plugged into the wall when we've got like a Super Nintendo and Mega Drive?
That really was the takeoff into consoles for me was that year. And like Mortal Kombat coming out in 1993, that was it. Like Transformers just didn't get a look in again till 1998, which is now just doesn't seem like that long a period of time from 1992 to 98. But as a 12-year-old to an 18-year-old, I mean, could you have a bigger change of yourself between two years?
Wow. For me, it must have been 89, I think. My cousin got a NES and Super Mario Brothers 2. So that's where I started, and I got it with Ninja Turtles the next year.
Sixo's going to cut all of this out, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like, what's the video game?
He's gonna
Is this Mario Kart?
No, not at all. I'm just listening like, cool. I had a SNES at some point. Don't know what year.
Is it you who only had Mario Kart with it?
No, I had more than Mario Kart. I was the undisputed king of Mario Kart, but I had more than Mario Kart.
You're like my friend. He only ever had Mario Kart. He hates video games and he doesn't understand them, but he's amazing at Mario Kart, and it's grossly unfair.
I don't hate video games at all. You know, if ever I were to play on one, I'm quite sure I would enjoy it. I just don't know. It's not something nowadays. I don't feel like now I have space for it in my life, I guess. Do you know what I mean? I've already got one hobby that consumes quite a lot of my free time.
I'd love for him to play something and then finish his sesh with I really enjoyed that video game.
This is way better than Pong.
I'm sure I would.
Turbomasters. So, like you said, poster boys, and we kind of listed some of those reasons, but let's talk about the toys themselves. First of all, that packaging is already quite a departure from, if you're not familiar with the end of Generation 1. I mean, even up till 1988, we had the very typical like grid pattern boxes with those sunburst colors. Then 1989 it starts to move away a little bit from that, and into 1990 we get gold box classics, but also those silver boxes as well, where you might recognize Micromasters and things like that, Micromaster bases. But then suddenly you get 1991 and 1992, and that packaging for Turbomaster Thunderclash just looks so completely different to everything else.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful box. Like Liam, it's one that I remember seeing on the shelves and stuff as a kid. and just being like blown away by it. It's a sizable box, first of all. I mean, it's like one of those ridiculous boxes where actually, particularly as it's blind box, so there's no window or anything on it. So it's only really when you open it that you're like, okay, there's a lot of space in here. Like you kind of imagine that the toy is going to be ginormous, and actually, it's not a tiny toy, but it's not massive at all, is it? I mean, it's vehicle mode. It's not the largest truck mode that you've ever seen, and certainly if it was packaged now, the box would be less than half the size that it was.
It'd be carded.
Yeah, it probably would. It probably would. No good for the old GPS, but but yeah, it would be tiny compared to what it was. But yeah, it was that artwork with the massive base mode on it and everything, and just looks phenomenal.
It's so different to the carded cars that came with it, the Boss and Hurricane, Scorch and Flash, because there's like quite minimalist cards. It's got lovely design and great artwork, but if you look at the back and you think about the paperwork that comes with those carded ones, I mean, they don't even really come with instructions or a sticker map. You just get like these tiny pictures on the back of the card, which are meant to be your instructions and your sticker map. And of course, they were multilingual at that point as well.
Yeah, they all had different names, didn't they?
They were definitely dumbing them down, weren't they, by that point?
Yeah, I had a Hurricane from Italy, which was Vortex.
Vortex, yeah, indeed. Bit of a weird reuse of that name, isn't it?
But that like little subtle circuit motif they've got going on the cards is amazing. I remember the first time I saw it, and I just thought that was just wonderful. Just because it was so different to what we'd seen before.
And that didn't bother you at all. Like it wasn't a bit of a hey, these aren't my Transformers anymore. I don't think you two have ever really suffered from that in any respect, have you?
I did, but that was before then with like the Gold Box Classics and stuff. Because I think I told the story about the Marvel comic when it came with the sticker and they changed the logo. And I really hated it. It made me angry for a moment. And I remember when they first changed the boxes, it was the same. But by that point, we'd kind of gone past it. And then it sort of came back because it went back to black and red. And so it kind of felt more like a modern version of the old boxes. But I just really liked the circuit thing they had going on. I thought that was really neat.
It's not something that's ever fazed me, that kind of identity of what the packaging looks like or any of that. Like I've always liked Transformers packaging. But I've never kind of been like, oh, that's not my Transformers. That's never, even as a kid, never fazed me.
What about the artwork that you get on the back of Thunderclash's box? That kind of always reminded me of even like classic packaging. Like the slightly different drawn style on the back of a classic Optimus Prime or a classic Astro Train box. The Gold Box ones. That's kind of, and it's Turbomasters versus Predators, isn't it?
It is. Well, yeah, Predators are the nemesis of the Turbomasters, aren't they? So it makes sense. But yeah, I love that back of the box battle artwork. It's really, really nice. And very reminiscent. Again, it kind of felt like a real continuation of G1. Well, it was, and they did a good job with it, I think.
That's actually one of the things we should mention about these group of masters. They are purely Autobots. It's not like Headmasters and Target Masters or Micromasters where you had both factions. Turbomasters were strictly Autobots.
Yeah.
Predators were strictly Decepticons.
That's a real Euro thing, actually, because, and it's the same with so you get, for example, in European, the releases, you got two sets of color changing guys, so you got the Decepticon Stormtroopers and the
Aquaspeeders?
Aquaspeeders, thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue. But then when they ported them over to Generation 2, they split. They just took the one set, not the Stormtroopers, for American release. They just took the Aquaspeeders and made them into quote-unquote color changers, COLOR, American spelling, and they made two of them into Decepticons. So, and it was like you just got one faction, but as you said, split across, one subline, but split across the factions. Which I think is quite different because, in Europe, we got literally two different subgroups of guys with the same gimmick. So quite a different approach. It's not really ever been done before.
Interesting. I didn't actually make that connection at all. I had no idea that they'd done that. Hasbro US taken that one subline and split the faction. That makes sense, though.
I don't think it's the only example either. I'd need to double check, to kind of be sure of what I'm saying. But it's always struck me as a bit of a difference, kind of getting into it. And that's why actually a lot of when you're looking at like different versions of those toys, it's very confusing at times what you're talking about. That one example, not to get too far into it, of color changes specifically is hugely confusing because some of the toys have the same names as their European counterparts, but they're completely different color schemes. But actually, the names are used on a different mold as well. So it's like, so like one of them is called, I think it's Drench, and there's a European Drench and there's an American Drench, but it's a different toy and different color scheme of those two toys as well. So it's like all over the shop, honestly, of what you're looking for. Or Deluge, actually, as well.
Well, you were never supposed to ever have Transformers from other countries. You were supposed to just be in your own little box, and that was your your universe.
It's only a thing that it throws up, several decades later. You're like trying to track these things down. That's when it becomes an issue.
I can't get my head around the fact that these toys were available in stores in the UK a mere 6 years before I started getting back into Transformers again. That I just missed retail versions of Turbomasters by 6 years, probably even less than that.
So when did you first come across them then, Maz?
Okay. This is a fun story. The group in the UK who usually meet up in the pubs, like we do, just our group of friends, one of the earlier meetups, I think maybe even before you joined us, I had them all come to my apartment in North London, where I'd laid all my Diaclone collection and art out, and it was almost like did it like an open house where the guys came around and it was an excuse to meet up in North London. They'd look at all the toys, and we go to the pub, and then we joined everyone in the West End who couldn't make it up to North London. And Specimen 17, who used to be a UK dealer, he came out with us that day. Actually, it was the first time he'd come out, and he had brought a toy to give to someone else who'd bought it, and it was Rotorstorm. And I'd never seen any of these toys before, and I took that one and had a look at it. I transformed it. I looked at its head sculpt and felt the toy, and I thought, I can't believe there is a G1 Transformer of this quality and look that I've never seen before. And I was completely besotted with that toy from that moment, to the point where I just went off and started buying Rotorstorms to repair. I even wrote this series of articles called How to Get a Free Rotorstorm, when you get a paperclip and you trade it up and you end up with a house. I think somewhere in between the Diaclone Police Sunstreaker got caught up with with all that, and I ended up with a free Rotorstorm. I bought bootleg Rotorstorms in different colours, of course, because I would. But yeah, that toy completely took me by surprise. I'd never heard of it before, because 90s just wasn't a part of my collecting. It was, at that point, it was just variant Diaclone and early variant G1. It wasn't even late era G1, but that toy really caught my attention because of its head sculpt. I couldn't believe how pretty it was, and all of that hot pink, which is an aesthetic across all of these Turbomasters, was just yes. And like you said earlier, return to vehicle modes, appreciable vehicle modes. Great transformation on that Rotorstorm, really great. That was my first encounter with the Turbomaster.
It's actually now, bizarrely, one of my son's favourite toys as well. I had a spare Generation 1 Rotorstorm, as you do. Sort of acquired two. When you...
I completely understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's a silly thing, but, it's one of those things sometimes with G1 collecting, isn't it? That you do end up with two, do you know what I mean? And whatever, trying to, compile them and that. And
especially with great toys like that. Sorry to interrupt, but I get it with great toys like Rotorstorm, because there's also so much that can be not quite mint about it.
Right.
But on another specimen it is. For example, you get a beautiful one with perfect stickers but bent rotors, and then you get another one which is a bit gone but the rotors are perfect. You'll buy that second one, swap over the rotors, and
this was it. The one that I got was the other one was stickers unapplied. Then I think this one was this one, but that's right. But it had a little stress mark on one of the wings or one of the fins. Mm-hmm. But this one didn't have the stress mark, and I think this one the rotors were better, so I swapped that out. So it was a combination of the two, and I ended up with a perfect one. And I was going to sell the other one, and then my boy saw it, and that was that, and it's never been sold.
I love it at first sight.
Yeah. And he loves it, and I think it's the right level of kind of chunkiness, blockiness, conversion, all of that to kind of keep him really interested. He did break the rotors. Sadly,
it's always the one, isn't it? Clear plastic rotors on that toy, and they're flexible.
I kind of knew it was going to happen, I must admit. And it's one of those where, but I'm sure at some point I thought, should I get him to watch out for those rotors? And then I figured, well, if you're going to give it to him, then it's his. Do you know what I mean? He needs to do what he will with it. And he did break them, but I've since glued them. And they're fine actually, and he does take quite good care with them. I think it was still in the phase where Daddy can fix anything, so it won't be a problem if it breaks. So, whereas he's now starting to kind of appreciate that actually, okay, some things can't be fixed. But at that point, it was like, oh, just glue it, Daddy. It's fine. But yeah, so no, he loves it, absolutely loves it. And actually, when the Generation Selects one came out, and I had that for a review thing, and as soon as it turned up, he took one look at it and went, "It's Rotorstorm," and he knew exactly who it was. And I was like, "Oh man, that's cool."
I got my original Rotorstorm from a kid at school. We did a swap. He'd got it for his birthday. I think I've said this before, but he got it for his birthday and came to school with it the next day because he didn't want it. He was completely off Transformers by this point. So I think I swapped it for a bunch of, I think it might have been football stickers or something like that.
Well, I'm glad it ended up in the right hands then. Someone who could love it.
He got the bum deal, didn't he?
Yeah, because by this point, like, I was...
Did you give him a stack of Steve Guppy? Is that what it was?
Yeah. God, I'm trying to think of all the Leicester legends now. I'm like going through it. Like...
Look, we've done computer games.
It's the 90s. That's the problem with the 90s.
Park it with the football. Park it with the
90s.
football.
It's just
moving on.
Unavoidable.
But this was why, because everyone was into computer games by that point, or video games. Everyone had sort of moved on, so we were all more into that than toys. But he came in and just offered it out. He was like, "I've got this. I'm not interested. Who wants it?" And I was like, "Football stickers?" He was like, "Yep, absolutely." So
Great.
It was brand new, like completely new in the box. He'd not done anything with it.
It's a funny old box, that one, isn't it? Rotorstorm's box.
It's the only one with a window in it. Well, Stalker as well, but the only kind of box with a window as such.
And that yellow insert with the twisty ties, I guess.
Yes, twisty ties. Yeah,
really nice box art on Rotorstorm.
It's actually very similar to like Pyro and Clench and all of those guys, isn't it? So they just kind of moved it over for them, I guess.
I just remember being utterly besotted with it, like seeing it for the first time, that toy, like in person.
I can't believe someone of our age back then, or even anyone now, could lay eyes on that toy and not have a love at first sight moment. I mean, I think it's one of the most impressive G1 Transformers I've ever owned.
Yeah.
Think of all the things it's got going for it. Most classic G1 head sculpt, and it's not a pinhead. Amazing light piping, like blazing light piping. The remotest light source and this pink fire goes off in his eyes.
Is it fair to say it's the single best light piping in Generation 1?
I think it's very fair to say that.
I think so.
What's better since?
Because it genuinely glows, doesn't it? It's one of those. Any light goes near it and it lights up.
Yeah. And light piping for me is one that if it's done badly, it's so bad. It's just like, ugh, it kind of takes away from the actual default look of the toy, doesn't it? Whereas this is just, as you said, it's just the slightest lick of light and it's just, brilliant.
Gorgeous colour scheme. But one of the things about it as well is it feels more like a quality toy. Like, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but by that point, over the previous few years, Transformers have started to feel like, I don't know, a bit cheaper. Not just the toys, but like the box art didn't look the same, but it didn't look better. Everything the packaging had changed, but it didn't look better. It was still nice, but everything felt like it was going in a different direction. The toys, because even the Turbomasters, all the cars, they're very light and thin, aren't they? Compared with the die-cast and the paint and stuff, there's a very appreciable difference between those. And I remember, even though I loved them, they didn't feel like the old Transformers, and it'd been going that way for a long time, through Micromasters and all that sort of stuff. And so, but this toy, like Rotorstorm, of all of those toys, he's got so much weight and heavy.
Could have been straight out of 88.
Clicky joints on the knees, everything. It feels like a toy that could have come from that time.
Agree.
The cars are actually strangely fragile because
Flash's arms, man.
It's Flash is like, you've got to be so careful with that clear plastic, the front halves of the car and everything. But it's all of them really in a way, and maybe not Scorch so much, but I would say the other three. Boss to sort of some extent anyway, just making sure you get the transformation right.
It's paint damage on Boss that's the worst.
Yeah, exactly. But what's weird is that, having those toys as a kid, I don't remember them being fragile. I don't remember being like, oh, I've buggered them. Do you know what I mean? Or any of that. So I'd love to see, what state they were in when I was done with them. But it's just funny. I remember getting them again as an adult and being almost surprised by how fragile they are, which is no surprise considering actually the state of some of the second-hand copies that you see is just ruined.
Also, stuff must just deteriorate. I mean, just recently getting a G1 Overdrive again compared to what must have been 9 years ago the first time I had it, I genuinely think it feels more fragile than the one I had 9 years ago. This plastic probably just deteriorates over time, just becomes more brittle.
Do you think there's a difference, though, between how we handle it as older people than we did then? And it feels different because we treat it different in a way. Because like when I pick up a lot of G1 toys, I notice now I handle them completely different to as a kid. I didn't think they were fragile and I would bash them about and all that. But when I pick them up now, I pick them up very gently and differently.
100%.
It's something I noticed recently. Like, it's like, wow, I feel like this is more fragile than I did. And then it probably is, if that makes sense. Like, that's on me.
I mean, look, I can only give the example again of, I'm not going to go on about him too much, but, again, with my boy, of like, if ever there's anything that I say to him, okay, let's take a look at this one, and it'll be, one from my collection, but we're looking at it together, and I'm like, now let's be careful with it, do you know what I mean? And he'll be like, yeah, of course, and he'll immediately pick it up and be like, whoa, do you know what I mean? And just off with it, and you can see that there's not, even though for him, he is actually being really careful, there's not the same level of consideration or care or whatever that I would have with it, of course. It's just kids, isn't it? They're not going to think about that stuff in the way that we do, for sure. And we wouldn't have done at the time. Yeah,
because for us, it's like, when you get like a vintage toy, you're very conscious of scuffing it or scratching the paint or chipping the chrome, and, stuff that you would never have thought of as a kid. And so you handle it like you're trying to keep it in mint condition, aren't you? And
I'm saying even compared to a decade ago when you would have first joined the adult collecting scene, the toys feel different to me now than then. I feel like there are joints on a lot of vintage toys that would collapse, pull out, fold over like Rotorstorm's legs, or just even the two halves of the helicopter tail that split. I'm pretty sure like the first one I handled some years ago was, a little easier with better give than the one I have now. And the one I have now is in better condition overall. I just think this plastic has changed over time. Even within the last decade, it feels different to, like, I wouldn't confidently go ahead and transform a double dealer now the way I would have 5, 6, 7 years ago. And that's not just me being more careful. It just doesn't feel as, it feels a lot tighter and stiffer that it is going to snap without a lot of due care.
Yeah, I could get that. The number of G1 toys now that I find that when you transform them, the thought running through my brain sometimes is, I can't believe this was for kids. Do you know what I mean? Just because of the kind of, not so much fragility, but just, stuff like, talking about double dealer, I was going to say, what about things like Darkwing? When I transform that, there's this, I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. Do you know what I mean? Just like, please be okay. Yeah. And it's not that they feel fragile at all. It's just that there is that, some of the mechanisms and things don't slide as gracefully as they used to, for sure.
I think that's definitely a thing.
The arms on my vintage Optimus Prime, they barely move anymore in a way that I can't transform in because it's so tight. It feels like it would snap. But that wasn't like that a few years ago. It's just over time, isn't it? I suppose things degrade, and I suppose stuff must get in there. Dust or whatever.
And speaking of degrading, I mean, what's the poster boy for that in this line? That's going to be Thunderclash, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Honestly, it's. I would say. In a way, yes, he is GPS-y. He is heavily GPS riddled. He's not the worst one at all.
No.
But he's also, there's a lot of fragility with that.
You're almost guaranteed something will shatter, whether it's the launchers on the truck like mine have, or it's the feet like mine have. There's the gun. Don't put that in the handle too much.
The gun on mine actually doesn't even fit properly into the fist. So even if you did wedge it in, I'm sure it would crumble. It will balance just about. So for photos and things, fine, and for the shelf, fine. But I think the peg is actually just slightly too large for the hole. But he's a bugger as well, because not only is he GPS ridden, but he yellows as well. So he's got both things going on. Absolute mare of a toy to find these days.
Mm-hmm. You're almost better off getting a used one than an unused one that's actually been put through its paces.
Yeah, I would say so. Like if you were going to buy one now, buying a sealed one, risky prospect, I think, and very expensive. And why would you? I don't know. Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe you're right. The other thing is sticker wear with that toy, isn't it? Because all along the sides of the trailer and everything, really, and missing pieces, missing missiles, missing the back door on the trailer as well. Very common thing.
Yeah. I'm amazed that is it a phoenix or an eagle on his chest?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm not an ornithologist.
I'm amazed that was not a factory applied sticker, because getting that just right is so important for his look, and they're always just a bit wonky, aren't they?
It's a nightmare. Yeah, it's an absolute nightmare of a sticker. I applied it on mine And it's one that I remember doing of just like almost with a ruler out, just trying to get it right.
I've never owned Thunderclash. For the many, by the time I'd got old enough to buy one, I'd already heard about all the stories of it breaking and it yellowing and stuff like that.
It's still worth having. It is still worth having.
This is the sort of thing that would be ideal for like a HasLab toy, isn't it? Just to rebuild this, but with modern plastic.
I would love to see that. I wonder if the appetite would be there for a G1 Thunderclash. I don't know. I think a lot of people would be very interested in a Generations one for sure. But I don't know. G1, maybe.
It's such a pretty toy. It's so lovely in robot mode. It's so G1 primey in the way it just looks, and a fantastic, that bird sticker on its chest. The colours, the light piping, really lovely face sculpt, gold face. And then he's got this really wicked trailer. And when you attach the trailer to the truck, it's such a fun toy. It looks a bit funny initially because it doesn't have tyres as such. It looks like it's missing its tyres. But it's such a great toy. And that base mode is wild.
The base mode is fantastic. Absolutely love the base mode. Absolutely love the way that the missiles fit in and kind of slot down and all of that. I think that's fantastic.
Gravity-assisted launch.
So, just very unique, isn't it? It's not like I've talked before about base modes and said that they're often a bit wanky, but this is fantastic. Really love it.
Just love that he's got that platform to stand on. I suppose you don't have that if you don't have the trailer door.
Yeah, it's very true. And of course, a lot of people know that mold from Machine Wars. As Optimus or whatever.
I thought it was Street Fighter 2 M. Bison.
For a minute there, when I heard you mention Street Fighter 2, I was like, "Where's this going?" And then as soon as it was M. Bison, I was like, "Oh man!"
I thought you were going to say, "I wondered what that was."
Right? No. I know what that is. Don't worry. So I know Street Fighter 2. I'm not like I have lived on this planet. Thank you. You made that comparison not so long ago, and I remember being absolutely floored by it.
Can't unsee it, can you?
It's so true. It's the brown.
Is it his little hat?
Yeah, it's the hat.
It's the hat.
The colour scheme. It's all of it. It's
proportions.
Absolutely all of it. Yeah, it just is. It's M. Bison in robot form.
Okay.
Shocking.
No, I want it really badly. Yeah.
I think Thunderclash is worth having because it is possible to get affordable ones. Even if. Mine, you just rattle it and you can hear something's going in its foot. Doesn't affect its display or transformation. I know something's broken on it. Even the rocket launchers on the trailer, they don't stay up because what connects them to the trailer has a broken tab. Again, I can still transform it. I can still display it. I can still enjoy it. And I don't feel like replacing it because I know it's just going to happen to the next one as well. So that's one where I've just accepted. And I was lucky enough to get one in used condition with really great, well-applied stickers. And I thought that is good enough for me because I just want to have it for photos. And what it brings to every photograph it's in cannot be overstated.
I do love your photographs of it.
I remember you looked at that for ages, didn't you? You looked at different versions. And I remember, I think we even looked at a few and you were like, what do you think of this one and whatever. But
undoubtedly, yeah.
I agree with you. It's one as well. Whenever you share a picture of it, people love it. It's just, it's I think because Machine Wars Optimus has a lot of love as well, because people remember that as their Optimus. It's the same as the G2 Prime when we talked about G2 in that minisode. And a lot of people adopted G2 Prime or Power Master before it or Action Master after that. But it's the same with Machine Wars Optimus, for a whole generation of kids that grew up at that point, that was their Optimus Prime.
God, I find that so hard to believe.
It's so true. It's so true. Absolutely. You ask a lot of people.
What a brilliant Prime to grow up with.
Yeah, 100%. Because they would have been nothing else. There was no fiction with it, but still, they knew if you knew who Optimus Prime was, you'd never had a Prime toy. That was it. But because that mold has a lot of love, I think then, Thunderclash, if you've never seen it in person, it must look pretty exotic. Do you know what I mean? And
that's
kind
a
of
great
fun.
word for it. Exotic. Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
Very well said.
It's even got the pink on the side, hasn't it? All that
it does,
detail
yeah.
and stuff. It's very exotic. Perfect.
The colour scheme is just out of this world. It's like nothing else. Just the pink, the teal, the blue, the white, all of it. The gold.
And the gold, yeah.
And the gold. Say what you will about the gold, and yes, it's a pain in the bum, but looks magnificent, if you can get a nice one.
And that trailer stripe with the black and the right.
Yeah.
It's just the way that contrasts
Transformers.
with... Yeah. Who? He's in disguise. But I love that, the way that contrasts with the white trailer and all that. It's just beautiful, just cuts right through it.
Yep.
What I'd also think as well, like the yellow missiles There's even red in there as well. It's just, and it's
especially
got...
when you open out the trailer, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. It's just absolutely phenomenal, honestly. And I love the main gun on the trailer. It's a little bit phallic, but absolutely love it. And some of the stickers and things are really nice as well. There's kind of like little writing on the stickers and all of that. It's just, can't say enough nice things about it, really.
If it didn't crumble, it would just be an absolute all-time must-own. It'd be up there with Overlord, I think, in terms of the kind of hallowed nature, but so many people shy away from it because they're afraid of getting one that crumbles. And I suppose if you live in a country like the US, where it wasn't released naturally, and you have to import it from somewhere, it's either going to be that boxed Japanese release of the European one, which is never going to be cheap, or you go to European sellers who know and see you coming. And like, yeah, okay, put a premium on this, and this one's not broken, £250 for a boxed one. Whereas it is possible to get them for like 30 to 40 quid loose. It's very possible because, of course, they were released in the UK, Italy, France, Germany. They were available in all those countries, and
they were fairly. Is that word again? They were fairly ubiquitous at the time. There was not a rare toy. It's not one that was uncommon to see. Mm-hmm. It's not even now. It's not a hard toy to find. I think this is probably one of those where you talk about rarity. This is not a rare toy. It's a very, very common toy. I've no idea how many are on eBay right now. I guarantee there's at least one or two. There will be at any given time. And, you can find it plentifully. I had no trouble tracking it down when I wanted to. But admittedly, that was, a few years ago now. But even then, I'm fairly certain you could do it now. The trick is finding the right one. That's the thing. It's because there'll be plenty that are knackered. There'll be plenty that are yellowed, plenty that are broken. The trick is finding the one that actually, fits the criteria.
Yeah. If you're going to do it, expect to buy a few before you get the one that you want.
Yeah, or couple them together.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe. And, getting all the missiles and things like that. Although you can get repro missiles for them, I think.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Don't they have shared missile mold between them all anyway, all the Turbomasters?
I believe so, yeah. I'd need to properly sit and look, but yes, I believe so.
Although chances are if you've had a close look at a Turbomaster missile, it's ended badly for you.
If you've had a close look, it's because it was firing at your eye at the time. Yeah. That's the thing. So it's probably wedged in there still. Yeah.
I'm so lucky to still have my eyesight in one of my eyes because I was looking down the barrel of Rotorstorm's launcher and it fired that at my eye and I just closed my eyelid at the right time. My eye still hurt for hours afterwards. Yeah. It bounced off. What a thing.
It's a funny old thing, the Turbomaster gimmick, because I think for years I didn't really know what the gimmick was. Like, obviously they have missiles and they fire missiles, and that's the gimmick. That's literally what Turbomasters are about. I think in my brain there was something more to it because of the way that the guns kind of sit, like with the cars and stuff. Things like Boss, where it kind of sits as the bonnet.
Yeah.
In my head,
integral, really.
Yeah, in my head there was more in the fiction around the gimmick or whatever. Not just literally these guys have got missiles. That's it.
It was always the Hurricane for me. The way it sits at an angle behind the windscreen. It feels like an engine, like
it does.
Part of the coming straight out of the cockpit.
Yeah, that's a really good example. You're right. And it just, I don't know, it always kind of felt like there was something more to it. Whereas I think at some point I just went, oh, it really is just that they've got very strong firing missiles. But still, the name is deserved because those missiles go far further than most other examples, don't they?
It's almost like quantum mechanics. They're in two places at the same time. They are both in the launcher and embedded in your retina at the same time. But with the Turbomasters, with Rotorstorm and Thunderclash, they've both also got button-operated launchers, haven't they? So, you've got the trailer ones, Thunderclash, they fold down, and on Rotorstorm, they fold down around the amazing, beautiful pink canopy. And it's almost like size classes in Transformers there. Like you have with Leader, Voyager, and then you've got the Deluxes, which are the cars, the 4 Turbomaster cars. There was definitely something about Rotorstorm and Thunderclash, like, they're uniform, and I think more uniform than a lot of sublines, but they still have that core gimmick, and they still share all this wonderful design philosophy of these toys that kind of, I think it's, of all the Masters, probably full of hits. More so than anything else. Like, they are just all hits.
There isn't a bad one.
No.
There isn't. No, there
a bit like Power Masters, really, I think. But some people would argue maybe Joyride isn't as good as the others. I like Joyride. but I don't think you can.
They'd be
can't
wrong.
argue.
Those people are wrong.
Yeah.
That's fine.
They are wrong.
But the one thing I was going to say as well is, of course, that Rotorstorm and Thunderclash have two blasters each,
Yes.
two
Yeah,
missile
good point.
launchers. But that particularly on Rotorstorm,
Yeah.
I think the way that those guns fold down or flip out, I should say, is one of the most satisfying bits of any gimmick on any Transformers toy ever. Just the push of that button, the click, and the gadunk, just the way that they flop down into position is just immense. Absolutely love it.
I love the outlining of Rotorstorm as well, with the clear pink plastic all the way around the edge, and it's just beautiful. That whole action of them flipping. I remember the first time I saw it as a kid, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. It just felt like a real feature. Like, when you're playing with it and you drop it, it's like attack mode.
I'm so envious of you guys having those toys as kids. I can't imagine what I would have made of Rotorstorm as a kid, honestly.
It was fantastic. It was a childhood defining experience.
This probably says a lot.
I'm only teasing you, mate, don't worry.
You missed out, dude.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Well, it's the time of the podcast where we talk about our sponsor, isn't it? So we're going to take a look at tfsource.com, as ever, because they sponsor us. Thank you very much to them. And so we're just going to pull up their site and see what they've got in stock and available for pre-order at the moment. And lots of good stuff going on there. Some more Diaclone reboot stuff up for pre-order. There's some more X-Transbot stuff, because there always is at the moment, of course. There's quite a lot. There's that, I don't know if you've seen it, there's that new Bumblebee movie, Shockwave, that looks pretty cool. Looks like it's supposed to go with 3-0 stuff, if anything.
It's a third-party one.
Yeah, but it does transform.
Oh yeah, that's the one. Sexy Walk Silencer.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Is that its actual name?
It's called Silencer, yeah.
No, it's called Sexy Walk Silencer.
It's not, all right, I see. No, it's not called that.
Oh, now I'm disappointed. I mean, I was like, oh, they've sold me on it with that name.
I know third-party names get pretty outlandish at times, but that's not one.
I think what's caught my eye, and purely because I opened Ace Hitter this week, is Red Buzzer, the Fans Hobby Siren. Because now it's like, yes, I'm into the toy, and that's quite lovely that it's in siren colours. So that's definitely caught my eye. Something I thought might catch Liam's eye, though, is a little bit further down on the Toy Source section.
Here we go.
The Party Wagon 7-inch scale Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles van.
Oh, is that the Kickstarter one? The NECA one? Is it the NECA one where it's like 400 quid?
That's about it, yeah. That's about the
It
price.
looks incredible. Absolutely amazing.
Yes, it's Party Wagon 7-inch scale Super 7.
It's funny, because it's so used to this thing with Transformers, like HasLab stuff. I didn't even bat an eyelid when I saw the price for it. I was like, wow, it just looks amazing. It's not something I've ever owned, but yeah, that's fantastic.
Look at the parts. I'm just looking at the picture of it, and there's one picture where they take it into all the various component parts. It looks absolutely amazing.
But do you know what's so lovely about it is it's not like completely cartoon accurate. It's got like the stickers from the toys and stuff like that, rather than just being like obsessively cartoon based.
The pizzas go on the wheels.
Yeah,
that's great. Did that happen in the show?
I don't think so. I think
that's great.
I think that's the joy of it. It's not like specific to one iteration of Turtles. I love that.
Did Turtles fans, do they have groups where people sit there and quibble about animation accuracy of each toy to screen grabs of things from 30, 40 years ago and all of that? Do they do that as well?
No, I think most of them realise how bad the animation on Turtles was. So,
right.
But you get so many now. Like you get the, I don't know if you've seen them. They did like modern toy versions of the vintage toys.
I think I did see that.
Those are really cool.
Wow, Super 7 are really... I'm clicked on from there onto a few other things, and Super 7 are really putting it out, aren't they, with the Turtles merch? There's loads of stuff. There's a little Krang, which looks cool. Liam, you should get in on this, man. There's so much good stuff.
It's too much of a rabbit hole to fall down. I've got all the vintage Turtles and some of the classic stuff. And the
you could just get yourself one little thing, couldn't you? Just as a little...
Just one Krang to put on one of your toilet
Exactly.
box.
Just a Krang. Just get a Krang.
I have one tiny little mouser who lives above my desk.
So that means you're buying the van.
You need a Krang, mate. You need a Krang.
I've got a vintage Turtle van.
But does it have pizza wheels?
No, it has the vintage shell wheels.
Oh, no, sorry. No good.
Just do it, Liam.
And I want Transformers with pizza wheels. Can you imagine the Transformers crossover where they did it with pizza wheels? That's what's got to come next, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. A Turtles crossover.
I think a Turtles crossover is surely in the works at some point.
But hopefully, and because I know you really like that toy, it should be the Earthrise Ironhide with the feet.
Man, don't even get me started on
Pizza
that thing.
feet.
Yeah, indeed. Lots of other stuff up for pre-order though as well. I noticed some of the stuff that's coming to stock actually. They've got the repaint of Studio Cell Unicron in as well. Did you even know there was a repainted version of that?
I did.
Yeah, Pumpkin it's called. Yeah, it's actually it is called that. Talking about your third-party names.
Have they got their Studio Series Bumblebee movie toys in? The new ones that have been released recently for pre-order?
I don't know, mate. It's almost like you'd have to look at the website to figure it out, isn't it?
Kind of
Shall I have a look for you?
Yes, please.
I'll sew some little name tags in your PE kit afterwards as well, shall I?
I'm
Honestly.
dreading them getting
like that.
Reboost in stock, Reboost, Crosscut, all that stuff. It's going to be impossible to resist Reboost.
Gonna happen soon. Yeah, well, they've obviously got old Shuki still up for pre-order.
Yeah, that's one I'm avoiding looking at because I can't imagine my collection without that in it.
Do you think you'll go there or not so sure?
I can't imagine not going, especially when people like you start getting it in hand and start sharing photos. You know, when you've got your Shuki coming out your grassy tunnel, that's just it. I'm sold then.
What was that? People like you. What was that?
Influencers.
Scum.
Dislike.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, lots of good stuff up there. I'm just browsing around on TF Source now, and I'm like, if I carry on, I'm going to start forgetting about what you two are saying because there's just absolutely tons of great things on there. So I'm down a rabbit hole now, looking at Marvel toys as well.
Oh, I'm quite in for that cartoon style Wolverine they've done. They always know how to get me. But that's because they do everything, so eventually something's going to get me. It's like they did the... do you remember the 90s Daredevil, where he had like the ninja suit?
Oh yeah, I love that suit.
That's like the best Daredevil suit as well. No?
Yeah. A lot of people really don't rate that suit, and I'm always like, why? It looks so good.
I know, you see people pick the yellow suit, and you're like, but he looks like he's wearing a giant bib. It's cool for its time, but the ninja suit.
The 90s suit is way cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I love it. Anyway, that's our sponsor segment. There you go. So do check out tfsource.com for all your Transformers and third-party needs. Thank you
Turtles
again.
needs.
And Turtles needs.
Definitely.
And Marvel needs. And probably some toy toilets on there as well. We haven't even talked about those today, Liam.
I'm fully stocked.
Oh, yeah.
I've flushed the chain on those.
Anyway, that's our sponsor segment for you. Thank you very much to them for sponsoring us again. And do check them out, tfsource.com.
We now return to the Transformers.
Back to Turbomasters. We've talked about the larger Turbomasters toys. Now let's talk about the 4 Turbomaster cars, because there's actually... It would be a total injustice to call them the simpler part of the line, wouldn't it? Because there is so much goodness in that set of 4 toys. And every time I know I share pics of those cars, the desire is just... There's an outpouring of it and want on social media when people see those toys, whether they know them or not.
Yeah, I think so. And I think again, the fact that we said earlier, the fact that it's cars, very specifically, and they're quite recognisable as cars. They're not Cybertronian cars, especially. They look like Earth cars, futuristic, sure, and with great big missile launchers in the middle of them and whatever, but they're still... They look and feel like old-style Transformers toys, don't they?
Yeah, man. Flash is a Lamborghini Diablo, basically. The front end is that of a Diablo, and Hurricane is a Porsche 917, the classic Le Mans racing Porsche 917, but white with, thunderbolts down the side and honking great turbo engine at the back.
Well, you hope he's white. At least you hope he's white. But if you can get one that's white,
that's a real thing with that toy. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, although the front end, actually, which half of it that stays white? Is it the front or the back? I can't remember.
It's the painted section.
Yeah.
Which I think... I don't remember. But it probably is actually two-tone, but just very, very subtle difference. But time has just made that difference a bit more obvious.
I remember you and I comparing Hurricanes, like so many copies, just like, and getting... and I did the same when I got mine. Mine is very nice. And but getting pictures of the it was on the card, I think, but getting pictures of the 2 sections of the car, because as you say, one is painted and one is bare plastic, and just like definitely trying to confirm if it was yellowed or not. And then I think you just get to the point where you're like, it's fine, honestly.
I remember it was the Space Bridge taking photos of the carded one he had for me, and he kept saying, look, I'm looking at it in person. It's not what it looks like in the photograph. It's just not coming out right. They're different materials. It's very, very nice, and it was indeed very, very nice. But I've always thought that the Operation Combination Japanese one was just whiter. I just feel like that was always whiter.
Yeah, maybe. Mine is all of my Turbomasters, actually, the 4 cars anyway, I should say, are the Operation Combination ones. So I got them in the 2-packs versus sets with the jets. Just because they popped up, and to be honest, I loved the packaging of those.
Yeah, packaging is amazing.
Absolutely
Really
loved
lovely.
it. So when they popped up and I saw them, I think I got 3 in one swoop. I think it was very, very easy to do. And then the 4th one was a bit of a challenge. And I think it was you actually alerted me, M.A.S, and said, oh, it's here, get it. And I was like, drop whatever I was doing. Probably.
And of course, they have different names as well. They're what, like Mark Road, Flame Road, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're all something Road, yeah. Spin Road, I think, is the other one.
Yep.
I'd need to double check. But yeah, Mac Road, all of that. So yeah, a funny old thing. But really, really lovely packaging on those that I do enjoy.
Another thing that's really good about those Japanese ones is they actually come with printed instructions with a sticker map. Because if you've ever tried to apply the stickers on the Hasbro ones based on the very small graphic on the back of the card, it's an absolute nightmare, especially Hurricane with all the tiny little bits of the green Thunderbolt on the side of the card. Just so many tiny stickers in a row. And then they all seem to come with the tiny thin yellow crest sticker for the head as well. It's just, why? Why?
I haven't actually applied the stickers on mine, believe it or not. Mine are all. I have applied the stickers on Thunderclash, but actually the others are all stickers unapplied. And I have said with Toy Hacks that I will make some sticker sets so that they can do some repro labels for them.
Because people will need multiple tries. It took me 5 tries to get that crest onto Old Scorch. It's that difficult.
Well, I think as well there are a lot of copies of those toys, secondhand that have worn labels, and people will,
surprised.
It'll hopefully be, real benefit for people.
I think so. Boss as well, with those stickers that run all the way along the side, then up onto the back of the rear. So easy to get them wrong and just not quite have them right. And then the more you transform it, the more you wreck the stickers. And it's one of those toys where everywhere that you grip the toy to transform it, there's a sticker there. So if you put one on even slightly wrong that's over a surface or not quite adhered, every time you transform that toy, you're going to wear that sticker more and more.
See, you're making me more and more nervous.
You should be.
A sticker in them myself now. I might wait for Toy Hacks to do the repro label set and go with a set of that instead. I don't know.
But they benefit from those stickers massively. They all look so good with their stickers.
I must admit, when I saw your pictures, I remember when you did them of after you'd stickered up your set and that, and I was like, wow, that looks really, really good. Really good.
They are beautiful. One thing about Flash, did you ever notice on the paperwork that big sort of like fold-out poster that comes with Thunderclash, and there's artwork of them having that big battle scene, and Flash is like the scout, and the story is like he's going out scouting and stuff. The car is actually called Breakneck. The name for Flash in that little sort of drawn mural is Breakneck, and then Flash is used as the name for one of the multilingual translations of his little story in that. So that was interesting. I only spotted that today, actually.
I'd never noticed
if that was an original name for that toy. It was Breakneck.
No idea.
Surprised it wasn't RR, Flash.
I was just thinking to myself, I was genuinely just thinking to myself, we've made it this far through this episode and nobody has made a Flash Gordon joke so far.
It's always coming, Gordon's alive, obviously.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Gordon's
Boss.
alive.
Is it true that Boss was basically Optimus Prime? Like when you read his tech spec.
His head looks like, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's basically his tech spec is Optimus Prime.
I have not read his tech spec in years, I don't think. What does it say?
And he's called Boss. He's the boss.
But he's not the boss, is he? Because Thunderclash is the boss.
Well, that's because he paid the cost. Leads with courage and cunning, fearless in battle frontline, can outwit even the smartest Decepticon with the sheer skill of his battle strategies. As vehicle, his central forward-facing turbine elevates to fend off attack from high flyers, as robot armed with a powerful handheld turbo defender. Why did I ever think that was Optimus Prime?
I don't know, man.
It's that head. It's got to be that head.
Well, it's funny because his box art shows him without a masked face. It shows him with a humanoid face.
Actually, I got to tell you, whenever I see that box art, you know all I think about? Do you remember that card? Do you remember the card that was doing
Sex Boss?
Sex Boss. It's all I think about is Sex Boss. Which now that I've said that and committed that to the podcast, I probably need to explain it. But yeah, there was
Please do.
do you know this, Liam? You don't know about Sex Boss?
So silly.
It was hilarious. So there was a copy, one specific copy of G1 Boss's card that had the toy gone and the clamshell had come off. And it was doing the rounds on eBay for years, this card. And someone was just selling it, of G1 Boss, second-hand packaging card, whatever, good condition. And it was all like a total normal eBay auction, except for the fact that where the clamshell had been ripped off, and there's the kind of grey bit with all the sort of nice bit has come off, so you've just got the card and cardboard underneath. In felt tip pen, someone had written the words "Sex Boss" in really large letters.
Oh my god, it's ringing a bell now. Actually, now you said it.
I don't think it wrote Sex Boss. I think it was just sex. That's all it said.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought they'd written. I'm trying to remember now. I've got a picture of it somewhere.
So we know what was on that kid's mind when they got Boss.
Maybe it just said sex. Maybe it did just say sex. You're right. Maybe it just said sex. I'm trying to remember now. It was a few years back. But basically, it was one of those legendary eBay auctions, that you see, and then every so often you see it again, and you're like, it's still blooming there. Do you know what I mean? And it just never sold. And our mate, Dan, his birthday came up, and he'd been talking about this card, and we got it for his birthday. Yep, we bought it. Specifically, I bought it, and everybody reimbursed me for it. It's not the only thing we got him, I should say. But he was actually made up with it, wasn't he? I've got a picture of him somewhere with it. That's why I'm saying I
think that's where I must have seen it. I think it might have been. I might have seen a photo of that.
Yeah, there's a picture of me and him in the pub with him holding it.
You and the Sex Boss.
Yeah.
Have you noticed those really weird googly eyes stickers on Boss's shoulders? If you look at Boss's shoulders, if you look at my stickered up version of him, he's got two sort of ridges on his shoulder that end in a semicircle, and you put two stickers on his shoulders, and they're both white circles with a black dot in the middle of it. And because the black dot is not exactly printed in the center, and it's not the same on either sticker, it just looks like a pair of googly eyes on his shoulders, and you can never unsee it. I am sorry.
Now that you've mentioned it, yeah, wow, it's very hard to unsee.
I like the way we're changing everyone's perception of the Turbomasters now. Then Bison, googly eyes, Boss. What are you going to do to poor Flash?
The thing is, Boss has an amazing transformation, really amazing, with the whole chest flip. But the thing is, you need to, I think it's the one part of him, you need to make sure you've moved the arms out of the way. I think you've pulled them out before you spin that chest, because almost every version of Boss I've seen, there are scratches in the paint on that hooded chest. And you've got to transform him correctly and get the clearance before you turn that around. Otherwise, you're going to wreck a perfectly good toy.
It's very true. Yeah, it's very easy to do, for sure. Or you just leave it as is and give him a little pop belly, little dad bod. It's got one of those. It's one of those. If you don't flip it up, he looks a bit like that. But it's funny. Do you know what does strike me about the stickers on that toy? Is just the kind of gold ones on the arms. How nice they look.
Yep.
Versus my unstickered version. I'm absolutely raring to get going with stickering those guys up soon.
Boss was not the hardest to do of those, but it was tricky to get the stripes lined up with the stripes that you then add to the rear wing to make sure that's as seamless as possible. I'm just not sure they're printed correctly for that. Hurricane was a right pain to sticker. Scorch's head. Let's talk about Scorch. What a transformation. What a terrific toy.
Yeah.
Colours on that. The light piping.
That's the only one I still have. Or I still have it at my mum's, my childhood one. I think my brother has it now, and it's battered to all hell. And I saw it. Remember when I was down there and I was sending you pictures of like a RID Ultra Magnus where he's like dark yellow or the old spy changers and stuff. But one of the ones I found was Scorch, and it's just all of his blue paint is like chipped off. But that toy, wow, that is an amazing toy.
It's such a lovely toy, honestly. I remember it very fondly as a kid. It was one that I loved the transformation on, and I still do. Very unique, really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think, it occurs to me just looking at them, all four of them kind of lined up, maybe one of the reasons that they're so successful as well is that they feel like almost kind of classic G1 archetypes in a way. They all have that look to them, don't they? Like, Scorch kind of has almost like the Trailbreaker look to him.
Yes.
I think as we said earlier, Flash has the kind of Sideswipe look to him.
Definitely.
A little bit. They've all all of them.
But with the door wings of the other guys.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's kind of got the classic Datsun appeal as well.
Yeah, because even Hurricane, I repurposed as Wheeljack because my Classics Wheeljack was
very fair. Yeah,
breaking up.
Yeah,
because there's something of it's like it's not
a bit
the
jazz
same car,
though.
but
It's a bit jazz.
yeah, but he's got
He's a
that,
Porsche. He's a race car. It's white, blue, quite jazz.
Yeah, but it's got that more lancier sort of shape to it, doesn't it? Than
yeah, but it's actually a Porsche, so no.
oh, is it? Well, actually, oh, here we go.
Yeah. I have a bit of correctile dysfunction.
Please your imagination.
Yeah.
How dare you, Liam? Honestly,
God,
stop doing
imagination,
toys
get back
wrong,
in your
Liam.
box.
Yeah, stop doing toys wrong.
get back in your toy box.
Climb back into Pooh Mountain. You can cut that.
This is just cut the bit of you laughing at your own jokes far too much. Honestly.
That's every episode.
I said Pooh Mountain. But yeah, I do think that they kind of fit that those kind of classic archetypes. I think there's a lot of appeal, and you've seen this in other toys since. I think that's why stuff like Bulkhead is often a popular character, is because there's that feeling with those characters that you could just slot them into the original Generation 1 art crew and they would be away. They would fit perfectly. And it's the same with these guys. The toys are slightly different, but the look of them, the appeal of them, they could just be classic Autobot cars.
Yep. And they have a truck as a leader, as you said.
Right, exactly.
But all the cars, they've got very sort of Japanese super robot heads as well, haven't they? Like when you look at Scorch with the fins on the side, it's very Diaclone-esque, isn't it? When you
same with Flash. It's basically Blue Streak's head, isn't it? Just something very much that style.
And it's fun of that time. Like when you think back to when that was, that's like the end of G1. We're coming into the sort of the time of Power Rangers and stuff, aren't we? So we're seeing those more of those robots come back into fashion already, aren't they? So they feel very of that time as well.
Don't you think they really fit in with car robots as well?
Yeah. Definitely.
I've got them next to like JRX and Spy Changers and stuff on my display right now, and I just feel like it works really nicely as a display.
They are molds actually that had they been released in RID, they would not have been out of place. Right. I mean, what would have been out of place in RID realistically?
Am I wrong to say like the Predator jets kind of got repainted into RID?
No,
Cyberjets.
That's you're thinking as well of the what are they? The flip changes that were originally
that's right. Yep.
Generation 2, that then went into Machine Wars. So there's a kind of crossover there somewhere, but yeah, not quite the same thing. But no, the Predator jets. Actually, I mean the Skyquake mold has been used a few times as in Machine Wars, of course.
Starscream, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Starscream in Machine Wars, and then it was used as King Atlas.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
In Universe, I think it was. So that's a toy, actually, that King Atlas version. Someone posted a picture of it on Twitter the other day, and I looked at it and just went, one day, need to do it.
Beautiful, isn't it? It's a really gorgeous.
You got a Universe Whirl out of Rotorstorm as well, didn't they?
I think that's right. Yeah, I think
did,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Rotorstorm came out as, I think it was Sandstorm in Machine Wars.
It was Sandstorm.
And then there's Whirl in Universe.
That Sandstorm, I like Machine Wars, but it's probably, I mean, to talk about the comparisons and stuff, it's probably a good example of one of the main reasons, or one of the reasons in the mix of why maybe Machine Wars isn't viewed as being so successful by a lot of people, and it's because they took a toy like Rotorstorm, which is electric blue, hot pink, incredibly stylish toy, and they made it dark brown. And it was, it was like, all the...
With brown highlights.
With brown highlights, literally. And
just waiting for M.A.S.K to say the magic P word.
Yeah, well. But, there's that... what was it? There was a thing going around the internet a while back where it was talking about... there was someone that was, I think, repainting classic Transformers toys into realistic military colours. And everybody was kind of horrified because they were like, oh, it was Spinister. I think it was the latest, the Generation Spinister, and they'd given it a proper, quote-unquote, proper military-style makeover. And so it was like grey and dark green and whatever. And people were like, why have you done that? Like, it was, bright pink, and it was, it was. I mean, it's the bisexual colours, isn't it? It's sinister, but it's the old bisexual flag. So a lot of people have obviously a lot of affinity and love for it for that. But people just couldn't kind of see the appeal of taking something that was so colourful and making it so.
Took the soul right out of it.
Yeah, so turgid in a way. And like I can see why some people might like that, but that is essentially what Machine Wars did, is that they took all of these really vibrant, super over-the-top colour schemes, and they just made them dark and kind of a bit boring.
And the colours are so much a part of why this line are looked at the way they are.
Yeah,
and
100%.
It's totally without mocking as well, isn't it? It's just, wow, that's how you make a toy. Those colours work on those toys.
You give them so much energy and life.
So coherent as well.
Yeah.
They are an extremely coherent subline of toys.
I think, there's stuff like the hot pink windows just really ties them together, and the eyes as well, which is, it makes them feel uniform, it makes them feel cohesive, and really kind of separates them. And I think all of this is why people love those toys, and they've got such great affection. So it's no surprise to me that probably the molds that then went on to become Machine Wars, that they don't, they're liked, I think, and still kind of appreciated, but the colour schemes, no.
It's a really it's a conflicting thing, isn't it? Because Rotorstorm is a spectacular toy, and I'm beginning to realise how much of that is the colour, because I really wanted to get every colour version of him. And I bought Chinese bootlegs in white and blue and pink, and again a similar blue. But I never quite managed to convince myself that I wanted Machine Wars Sandstorm, even though I know what a good toy it is, and it would be a mint sealed one for such a great price. And having that toy fresh out of a box, it's a real pleasure, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
The same with Machine Wars Optimus. I think I'm more likely to buy Optimus than I am to buy Sandstorm.
I have all those Machine Wars toys, and as I say, I do like them. I mean, you can get them plentifully. I think, the even the 4 larger toys, I mean, the carded ones, 10 a penny. You could go on eBay and get them all now, I'm sure. They're just so easy to find. But even the larger ones, very plentiful, not hard to find sealed at all. Rotorstorm is kind of, to Sandstorm is kind of the obvious one, just because, as I say, it is just literally green and brown. And you just kind of, even the blue, like you've got blue eyes and a blue canopy where previously it was pink, it's dull. There's no real kind of vibrancy to it or anything. So, it's still kind of fun, in theory, but just very, very dialed down. But it's the same with, old Stalker, who is a personal favourite toy of mine. Now, that is a toy, I know we're just specifically doing Turbomasters, but that is a toy that I, definitely for me was a favourite as a child. Even though it came right at the end, all of these were right at the end for me of Transformers, but still, it's a personal favourite. I remember getting it and being like, wow, this is actually good. It's kind of at the age where you start to appreciate that some things are better than others, if that sort of makes sense. And but even that, with Machine Wars Soundwave, which is a toy that a lot of people do love, the colour scheme is just no match at all, no match. Those
clear canopies, like the pink and stuff, they're such a part of what makes those toys what they are, that they give them that life. When you see them, they pop straight away.
Yeah.
So I think once they took them away for the molds, I don't know, it sort of brings them down. It's like if you look at Hurricane, he's got that gorgeous pink, windscreen. And you're like, if that was blue, it would still look nice. But when you see the pink, it's instant. Like you see it and you're like, whoa, that's just they're quite
it makes used
like
versions of them more than displayable.
Yeah.
Just because they're so interesting visually.
I would agree with that. I think I would have still loved to have seen repainted versions of the cars. And to be fair, I would have been up for more repainted versions of the bigger guys as well in decent colour schemes. It would have still been fun to see. But never to be, I guess.
I took some pictures recently of Thunderclash with Car Robot's Black Convoy, or like RID Scourge to some. And it's amazing how well those two go together. Both have really good light piping. Both have, the transforming cab and the base mode trailer. And they just looked like natural enemies. Natural toys to put in a series together. They absolutely looked terrific together. And I think if you had that, like Thunderclash in Robots in Disguise, it would have absolutely worked. It would have totally fit in with that toy line, with the kind of mishmash that was.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense in a way because there's only a couple of years between them actually in terms of where they come from and whatever, isn't there? So because Generation 2 Laser Optimus was 94 94?
93, I think.
Was it 93?
I'd like to say it was 93, yeah.
Yeah, one of those anyway. But so you're looking at literally a year, maybe two's difference between the design of them. So it kind of makes sense that actually they fit really well. That whole era, man. Honestly, if there's one thing I would say about that era of toys generally, people really write it off, and it's such a shame because I would lump Generation 2 in with this as well, because there are just so many great toys, so many fantastic molds that are just kind of, a lot of them have been discovered since, like Laser Optimus is an obvious one, and Thunderclash to some extent as well. But there's just so many fantastic toys just sat there, just like completely unappreciated.
Yeah, we're talking about top tier Transformers as well, toys that tick every single box that makes a Transformer brilliant. And then can you imagine if there was a cartoon featuring Turbomasters and Predators?
It'd be immense. But a lot of them for that era. I mean, coming back to stuff like the Stormtroopers and things like that, genuinely, these are all toys that when I first, as an adult, got them, and I got the Stormtroopers at TFN a few years back and transformed them, I was blown away by the transformation schemes, man. Like, it's not, they're not just your typical chest folds down into the boot, from the bonnet of the car or whatever. There's real, you couldn't predict what these toys are going to do. You're talking about everything switching around each which way. They're completely unique, and so beautifully designed. And yeah, they're a little bit fragile here or there, some of them, but honestly, just incredible designs.
I mean, you do have to talk about the downsides, because every single one of them does have a downside. Every single one of them does have a situation where Thunderclash is well documented. It's the gold plastic syndrome, shattering parts, yellowing. Rotorstorm's got the very, very easy to destroy rotors. And what are you going to do with a helicopter toy? Not play with the rotors.
Also, discolors quite easily as well.
I noticed
on the last one I had, it was going green on the back.
Yeah, and it's really easy to see the difference in colour between the sections as well. I think one of the earlier Rotorstorms I had, the two halves of the tail were different blue.
Mine. Yeah.
Then you've got the cars, obviously, they've got, Flash is the one I remember. I think I've had two with a broken arm that just snapped right off the door. Boss damages really easily because of the paint. I think it's just Scorch who's...
I was going to say, Scorch is actually...
endures.
Yeah, he's quite indestructible by comparison to the rest of the lineup.
So you've got to keep that in mind, and they're not easy to find in great condition. I was super lucky to get a carded set of those Turbomasters, and yeah, you say they're ubiquitous. They're available in lots of countries. Lots of people bought them, but finding carded versions of those toys is not an easy thing to get.
Oh no, 100%. I just think there's a difference between rarity and condition. That's the only thing. So that I don't consider them rare at all. But yes, absolutely, finding nice ones. That's a challenge.
You don't think a sealed boss is a rarity?
I think in terms of finding a boss, I don't think is a rarity. That's my point. I think if you've got if you're specifying the condition, but not that many people are going to be looking for a sealed boss for sure. A lot of people are just happy to have not necessarily whatever condition, but a decent shape one.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, when I did have a loose worn one that I sold, it was jumped on immediately.
Getting those Turbomasters is so vivid in my mind because it's so connected to it. It was just this one summer, like getting them all over a month or so, and it's just that's how whenever I think of them, I think it's the hot pink colours. Everything's so bright, and it's that feeling of summer just goes straight over me. It's just this.
They are summer toys, aren't they? They do have that look that look to them.
What's summer?
Yeah, right. God, forget that he's in the old frozen north,
the land of ice.
Yeah, man.
That's the thing, actually. If you were going to recommend one Turbomaster to somebody, which one would you recommend they get to sell them on the line?
Rotorstorm.
It'd have to be Rotorstorm.
Yeah.
See, I thought this would be a discussion, but it isn't. It's exactly the same one, I would say. There's no discussion at all. That's the one.
It's the obvious one. For several reasons, but I think the fact that it's brilliant in both modes, looks gorgeous, it shows off the gimmick really well. Because
probably better than all of them, right?
Yeah, because of the flip down cannons that we talked about, the fact that he can then hold both cannons in his hand, which is actually something that Thunderclash doesn't do.
Right.
So that is another element onto Rotorstorm, actually, that you can either keep the cannons on his back or you can take them off into his hands, which looks epic. The light piping, the head sculpt is the best of all of them by far.
Probably the best ever. Maybe it's just one of the best ever head sculpts.
Certainly up there for me of like best Generation 1 head sculpts. No word of a lie. If I was to make a list, it'd be on the top 5, top 10, whatever. But I don't know. It's definitely up there. And transformation is just amazing.
It has it all. It really does. And since you've had 2 Rotorstorms, have you ever done the thing where you put 2 guns in his hands, but then you mount the other 2 on his back so that he has them? So he's got like full on 4 rockets on him.
Don't think I have, no.
Give it a go. It's wicked. It's just like when you do with G1 Quick Switch. If you've got like his guns in his hands, but you've also got them mounted on his back as well. It looks great.
All right, I'll take that tip. Absolutely. Try and wrestle it out of my boy's hands first.
One of the other things about these toys, we haven't talked about actually, is they've all got the missile storage as well, haven't they? Like that was like a new thing at the time. I remember that being fascinated by it. Every single one you can peg the missiles on, and I remember being really fascinated by that at the time because we were so used to Transformers, the accessories just went in a box or to the side, didn't they? They didn't go anywhere. Like occasionally you get a gun that pegs on, but everything.
Just look round and they've all got them like on their legs, just their little cars. Fantastic.
Even Rotorstorm comes with 4 missiles, doesn't he? And they could all go on the little
little skis.
Would you say though that actually in a way Rotorstorm is the best again though, isn't he? Because of his little what are they on the helicopter?
Skis, aren't they?
Skis. Yeah, I guess.
I'm sure that's the technical name.
For all that skiing he does. It's
landing skis.
Après ski.
It is the technical term now. But yeah, just because he can get 4 of them on 2 on either side, can't he? And I think they look really, really cool.
To be fair, he looks like he's wearing a ski suit, that blue or that pink. It's very much.
It's a shell suit, isn't it? He's wearing
a shell suit. It's a shell suit. Actually, Hurricane.
What do you think Hurricane's wearing?
Yeah, Hurricane looks like he's wearing a shell suit for
sure. They all look like they are from a catalogue selling skiing gear, don't they? They've all got that vibe, every single one.
My God.
It's the Autobot ski team. Amazing.
Ski patrol.
Actually, when you look at them lined up, they really do. They really, really do. I've got to say at this point, just because I feel like I've not made it very clear enough, but Boss, as much as I would recommend Rotorstorm as the ultimate, Boss is one of my favourite G1 toys.
He's wonderful, yeah.
Absolutely love that toy.
Great transformation, great look.
Yeah. The only reason I didn't get him as a kid was because I thought he looked boring. I don't think that now, but as a kid, because all the others were so brightly coloured, and he was like a very sort of light blue. But that's the only reason I didn't end up with him. He was like the last one I was getting around to getting, and then by that point I'd moved on to something else. But it's the only reason I ended up with it.
Absolutely wonderful.
It's basically 89 Batmobile in blue, and you didn't think that was cool.
No, it just looked like a blue, powder blue car at that time. Now I like the fact he looks like he's wearing dungarees. So it's kind of there's a neat touch to that. But here's the thing: what do you think they've never been touched again? Like even as repaints. Like I'm quite happy that we've not seen them in Generations because if they'd have come before now, they would have just been flat repaints of something else. Like you remember the BotCon version of they did Scorch, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it was just Hound, and like it was fun that they did it, but it's not what Scorch is to me. He's not a Jeep. And I think before this, we would have just seen them like that. Whereas now, the way Generations is going, it feels like they'd get possibly their own molds.
Well, people were saying they wanted Thunderclash out of one of the recent Primes or Magnuses, didn't they? And I just kept saying, it deserves its own mold.
Yeah, but that felt like it was designed for a Thunderclash. It just had that. There's something to that. It feels very much like it was suited to it. Which
one is it, precisely?
I think it was the Siege Ultra Magnus.
I really would want better for Thunderclash than Siege Magnus, I think.
I don't understand why they haven't, though, because they do a new Optimus for every toy line, and you think for 1 year it would be one that would just be Thunderclash, but in Optimus colours, like the Machine Wars colours. You'd think that would be the one they'd choose, because they've been doing different versions, haven't they? Like they did the Galaxy Upgrade one, the Galaxy Force one. So you just think that would be one year, because it's an easy way to do Thunderclash and an Optimus Prime, and it's a new mold.
No one ever touches Machine Wars, though, now, do they? They never come back to it. Maybe Legacy. Don't know, maybe it'll lead on to it. But if they're doing Unicron Trilogy and stuff as well, maybe. It'd be lovely to see.
It just feels like them and the Predators, they've both rarely ever been touched. Anything from that era doesn't seem to make it into modern toys. Even like
I don't think there's enough awareness of it. I mean, how many times have we had to answer questions like, oh, who's that guy? What's that from? What year is it from? And you end up telling people it's G1 from 1992 in Europe or Japan, and people don't know.
Yeah, because even in the IDW comics, they don't really pop up there, do they? And stuff like that. And you think it's such fertile ground because they're such untouched characters. There's so much that they could just...
Well, Thunderclash had a heck of a role, didn't he?
Well, yeah, okay. That's very fair. But I mean, like the others and stuff like that, they're all, there's no character to them. And that's Thunderclash is an example of that. He was given this whole new character and he became really popular for it.
Mm.
And Rotorstorm, there we go.
Yeah, Rotorstorm and Wreckers had the best line of the whole thing.
For being murdered.
Right, that's the thing. We've got this Fans Hobby Lightning Eagle, which is the retool of Power Baser into this massive Thunderclash. And speaking to them, I think there's an appetite from them to do the other Turbomasters. I would not be surprised if they went down that path eventually. Would also, because they're doing Double Dealer, so they're obviously committed to Power Masters, and I can't wait for them to do things like Getaway. Can you imagine Fans Hobby Getaway? Wow! So it wouldn't be a million miles away for them to start doing other cars as well. I mean, if you look at Getaway, is it a million miles away from the tooling that you would use to get a Hurricane?
It's a good question. I would love to see it happen, honestly. I did moot the idea of some Fans Hobby Turbomasters a little while back, particularly with them, having done Thunderclash. But and their Thunderclash is so good.
Look at Boss and Getaway next to each other. Just look at those two. They are not dissimilar in the slightest, even transformation-wise.
Yeah, I guess with Getaway, the old the shoulder pads go out to the side, don't they, rather than to the back. But otherwise, yeah.
Flip down legs, twisty waist, twisty chest, masked head. It's right there, guys. It's right there.
You're getting a bit all Combiner Wars Silverbolt here now. You're going to start getting the old red circles out.
Bastard come up in so many episodes recently, none of which were about Combiner Wars.
Keeps coming up on the internet, doesn't he? You get people on the internet to stop talking about it. That's the thing.
I always felt like that with do you remember the old Generations Drift?
Yeah.
I couldn't see why they didn't make that into boss, because it even the panels fold out, for the legs.
But Bryce did that, didn't he? He made a G1 Drift out of a boss.
Did he?
And it was gorgeous. Yeah, it's a pretty well-known custom. He repainted a boss as Drift. It's really nice.
Because that toy, the panels for the bonnet fold out away as well, for where you would slot in the cannon, and the chest is similar. All the parts are there, all the elements, and the things going, their shoulders going backwards, all of that. It's right there.
Point Blank as well is not a million miles away.
Yeah, that's another one.
Point Blank would make a nice thing to repaint into Drift. Or, boss. Well, that's pretty much all we have on Turbomasters. Like we said, it could easily have been a mini-sode, but we really wanted to flesh it out a little bit and have some airtime to, put the passion that we have for these toys into the subject. Before we go, would love to give a shout out to our patrons. These are the patrons in the top tier, in the Sixo's Butler tier, who also get exclusive mini-sode content. So if you enjoy the podcast and you want to support us, and for that support you want to be rewarded with extra content, then all you've got to do is sign up on patreon.com/triple takeover, where you can also then select Sixo's Butlers. And a big thanks to our current Sixo's Butlers. That's Nick, Dean Watts, Danny Roberts, Chris C137, Andy, Cannon, Preston, Brian Fox, Chris, Billy Ho, Spiderfather, Adam Shoemaker, Zachary Blader, Matt, Stephen Perkins, Bad Saturday, Justin Masaru, Dave Dalrymple, Snowcrack, Absurd, Geo Kaiser, Yusufa, John Pearl, Cliff Zaris, Loxer, Troy Seth, Anthony Karch, Alec Meir, Captain R.A. and Phil G.
This is one of my favourite segments on this.
What does Captain R.A. stand for, Maz?
Dunno, mate. Dunno. I haven't got a clue. You'll have to ask him.
All right, okay. You got to say his full name.
Not today.
Not today, Galvatron. Also worth mentioning that we're sponsored by TF Source, so do check them out as well, as we've been talking about them a bit tonight. tfsource.com for all your Transformers and third-party needs. Thank you very much to them for sponsoring the pod. And we've got our Redbubble as well. I'm going to try and remember the address for that now. It's redbubble.com/people/triple takeover/explore. You can get all your merch on there. Leggings, as we always talk about. Stationery, Liam. Do you know we do stationery?
I've heard rumours now.
Yeah, well, it's on there. Check it out.
That hidden side menu. I heard that.
Yeah, there's a little side menu that you've got to that confuses some people, I suppose. You've got to check that out.
And remember, you can follow us on social media. We are at @triple_takeover on Twitter and Instagram, and we are at Triple Takeover on Facebook. Liam, where can our followers find you?
I am at Toybox Soapbox on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
And I'm at SixoTF on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram as well.
And I am at TFsquareone on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you for joining us. We made it to the end without a legible sticker map and held on to our eyesight just a little longer. But as we're all ultimately gravity operated, it's time to launch this one into orbit.
All I think about is Sex Boss.